a talk on project patterns, and I want to start just by saying the work was really done by all 6 of us at the Guild, and I think if I can use my mouse, I'll point to everybody. There's Peter. I mentioned Peter before from Germany. Here's Tom DeMarco of Maine, Steve McMenamin of California. There's James and Suzanne Robertson of London, and here I am. The Guild, I mentioned, is a kind of quirky company. Because we're all so far apart, what we do at least once a year, but usually twice a year, is we pick a lovely part of the world and we rent a house for a week and go live in it, all 6 of us, and talk about what we've done since we've been together and what we're doing. It's kind of rare that all 6 of us are on one assignment together. We work alone or in pairs, trios. I do a lot of work with Tom DeMarco, and so we catch up and we talk about what we want to do. The one big advantage I think we have over most of you who are listening and seeing this is we've been consultants for years, and the Guild was 25 years ago, and basically every week we're in a different organization. And indeed, one of our consults we call physical exam, where we go in and look at how you are organized, what your processes are, etc., to try to figure out where you are above and below the norms of the industry. And so we see lots of different things, and we get together and actually, usually over making dinner, making dinner also means drinking wine, by the way. Making dinner and drinking wine, we'd have you ever seen this session? And we would talk about odd things, plus and minus, that we've seen in different companies. And after a while, we just started to talk about this because here, I guess, is the fundamental crux of the whole talk today. Everybody talks about best practices, but no one does them all. I mean, it's not as though we don't know how to make good software and things like that. But something else is happening, and what is that happening? We call them project patterns. You might as well think of them as habits, like personal habits. They're good habits. You actually floss every day or something like that, and they're less than wonderful personal habits. You don't quite get to change the underwear frequently enough, or something silly like that. But the interesting thing is, we all know, for instance, just to take things like health for adults. Everyone knows about sleep and exercise and diet. Everybody knows about that. And you always see the sleep experts on television saying, the average adult needs at least 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Otherwise, you're not performing physically and mentally to your maximum capability. I live in New York. I don't know anybody who gets 8 hours of sleep a night every night. And yet we know that's true. With diet, everyone knows about diet and exercise. And I'll say it myself. I know all about what good diet's supposed to be about, but I like a good belt of scotch after work. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give up my scotch. Now, that may not be a great habit, but I would argue it's not the end of the world either. And organizations are that way. And so we started to think about these habits, plus and minus, because they seem to be stronger than best practices. And they seem to be truly habits. They repeat themselves over and over in organizations. We came up with, I forget, it's over 80 different patterns that are in our book, Adrenaline Junkies and Template Zombies. And some of them are negative, some of them positive, and some are just neutral. They're observations. But our idea is basically, once you start to recognize your habits, you're well on the way. I mean, if they're good habits, that's the way you move them into the organization and you make them business as usual. And if they're bad habits, recognizing that they're bad and trying to find a cure is your first step. It seems to me that's what makes a lot of sense. So, let me show you a couple of pattern books that I really like. Michael, could you advance the slide? For some reason I'm not advancing. Michael, you there?
Yes. Did you see the slide change?
For some reason I'm not advancing here. Could you advance the slide for me?
Sure. It looks like I've moved the slide to slide 7.
Okay, hold on. I'll hold on. Sorry, everyone. But while Michael's working out this, I'm not quite sure what. I think we got frozen here. one book you probably have seen. There are lots of pattern books now. But to me, the classic pattern book is Design Patterns, Elements of Reusable Object-Oriented Software by Gamma, Thucydides, etc. That's a terrific book. That's talking about patterns within the software and and reusable patterns of software componentry. And at the Guild, we wanted to talk about patterns of projects, not software. And not only just projects, but organizations as well. And actually, our inspirational book is the other book on this slide that is going to show up, I hope. It's called A Pattern Language, Towns, Buildings, and Construction by Christopher Alexander and there it is, and 4 other folks. This is the Pattern Language book. You may never come across this book, but it's a cult favorite of the Guild. It is architectural patterns, and they talk about patterns of community down to patterns in homes, and it's really interesting reading. Good architectural design. There are all sorts of different ones. My favorite one is called the waist-high shelf, and basically it says at the door to the home that is used by the family the most. Obviously, many families don't come in the front door. Right by the door, there's a waist-high shelf where keys are left, mail is put, messages are sent back and forth between members of the family, and it becomes the collection center. And I read that, and I just had to laugh because when we moved into our apartment in New York, the first thing my wife asked me to do was to put a shelf by the front door, and for our mail and our keys and everything. And there it was. It was the waist-high shelf, a perfect example of a wonderfully useful pattern. And so the pattern language is a great idea. So let's see now if I have gained control here. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So here's some more patterns. I just want to kind of ease you into this. On the top left and center are monarch butterflies. I don't know where you are in the world. I do not know if monarchs make it to Europe or not, but they're all over the United States. If you look in the upper left corner, these beautiful black and orange and white butterflies have amazing distant migratory patterns where they follow along the same pattern generation after generation. Is hardwired into them. If you ever get to Monterey, California, which is a beautiful part of the world, there's actually a monarch butterfly park where you can go sit, and during migration there are thousands of ponds, thousands of butterflies resting along the seaside. In New York, if you look on the far right over there, the New England, New York monarchs make it down to Miami for the winter. And the amazing thing is scientists have recognized that monarchs not only have the same pattern, but they go to specific trees to deposit their eggs, etc. It's pretty amazing. Up in the upper right is, if you've ever seen that kind of a tattoo before, that's a Maori warrior tattoo. And you see that pattern, if you've ever been to New Zealand or someplace around there, you see that pattern, and indeed it strikes fear as the warrior looks enormously ferocious. Below the Maori is the classic wedding cake. You just take one glance and you know that is a wedding cake. That's what it is. Another standard pattern. In the middle, down the bottom here, as I'll move the mouse, if you're not from the United States, you probably have no idea what this is. This is Texas line dancing, where men and women get in a line, as you can see, and they do the same steps over and over to music. You don't even get to hold on to your partner, but in Texas, this is called dancing, as they repeat the same pattern over and over again. And over here, at the bottom, is an Irish knit sweater. And I think it's actually an Aran Island sweater. And that's a pattern. It's kind of a sad story, but it's an amazing story. There are different patterns